Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hello.
Hey, good morning from Utah.
Good morning from Idaho.
Idaho. Yeah, so Michelle's visiting her brother, so we're in two different places and a bit discombobulated and a little bit late this morning getting kicked off, but it's all good. I'm late, she's late.
Well, both my brothers are here and we just got chit-chatting and I was like, crap, I need to go take a shower and get ready to do this. So yeah. Thanks for the extra 5, Jim.
Yeah, I needed it myself. It's just a little bit scrambling around here trying to fit in too many things this morning. So I've also got our V8 Plus thing happening after this. So a little bit of stuff happening today, but it's good stuff. And I think, our conversation for today will be of interest to many. And I want to talk about it with the idea of brand new dealers in mind. So we'll get to that. I think, first, just a couple of announcements. The V8 Plus thing is for our V8 dealers only. So I'm really excited to share all the great content that we brought together for that, that kind of bonus education. And that's been, the nerd and analyst in me has been going into that, where the subject is pricing and markup. So we're digging into that in some detail. And so that's it. I mean, last day of the month. So
it is, isn't it?
Yeah, dealers have been reporting pretty slow sales. It'll be interesting to see when the sales come in for July, how they compared to June. But for the most part, dealers are talking about pretty low volume in the last.
Isn't that typical for this time of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I was just telling our group last night that I generally have been able to say that April through October is pretty consistent. Now we're getting more data where I'll be able to see and get a better feel for what actually statistically happens, month over month. But generally speaking, the summer months are slower, and that's kind of what happens. But yeah, it should hopefully pick up in August for many.
So non-buy here, pay here stuff. I've been got in last night to visit my brother up in Twin Falls, and my younger brother asked if he could go, and we watched recordings because we aren't watching it live because everything's happening in Paris, the Olympics, and got to watch the women's gymnastics team take gold. It was pretty fun. For me, I'm like, I love gymnastics. That's it's Olympic thing. I like the stuff that, it's Winter Olympics, it's figure skating. Summer Olympics, it's gymnastics for me. So I was pretty excited.
I haven't seen any of that. They're only days in. They're already awarding team medals for
the team medals.
Wow. So that must
actually, Simone Biles, she's on the gymnastics team. She is the most decorated gymnast in the history of the Olympics now.
Wow. Because I can remember some Olympics from yesteryear that were, I don't want to name the names because then people will know how old I really am.
Mary Lou Retton.
Before that, I can think of some before that. So yeah, there's some well decorated gymnasts from yesterday. So yeah, I'm glad to know that USA.
It was really just kind of fun to watch patriotism and the flag and people getting super excited, and what I love too is that those that are in deep competition with each other just embrace each other after they're done. And there was like a really monumental photo that was taken of North and South Korea taking a selfie there, and I'm not sure what team it was, but it ran across my social media, and I'm like, that is what, it's like those are goals. Those are world goals that people that are typically at odds with each other are just like, get in here and let's take a selfie and find some commonality and enjoy the spirit of what we're here to do. So
amazing. Good stuff. Yeah, I think there's a social media darling. I don't know if she's a media darling, but I'm going to have to check out women's rugby. There's some woman who's really popular. She's very just gregarious and fun, but she's also just
a force to be reckoned with.
She's a force. And so I got to check that out. I've never seen a women's rugby game, but
it's been fun. It's been fun. You do have a television. We don't watch TV at home, so it's an odd thing for the TV to be on. And I'm like, we do have a television. We do have Xfinity. Plug for Xfinity.
Sure.
But we just don't.
I'll watch it. I'll the way I'm currently tracking, I should be caught up in mid-September, maybe September. On replay.
You binge watch from now.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'll save that for winter time when I'm locked in for the
deal.
So it's all good. But we should get to our topic.
Okay.
Shall we?
Yes.
So let me share the post. I'm going to put it on the screen here. This is whoops, it's not working as well. Is it loading? Okay. It's I'm on a Mac over here, so my life is all messed up today. But so this is a post. What, Michelle? What's the Facebook? So, she's Mac, I'm PC, so I'm on her device in the studio.
We still
yeah, of course, most times. So the the post says, customer buys a car today, couple of hours later, it starts overheating. He isn't paying attention and drives it until he blows the engine. What do you do? So this is not a new conversation, right? This stuff happens. This is something we've touched on it in past episodes of the morning show, and it'll continue to be, something that is discussed. But in particular on a White Hat Wednesday, Michelle, I really wanted to kind of break it down from a white hat perspective. And so for those not familiar, if we got some people tuning in new, White Hat Way for us is just how would the good guys or the good gals in the industry take on this matter? And there are a ton of them out there. With White Hat Way, we're just kind of putting a name around it, what it looks like. And I think there are so many pieces. We better back up and kind of go to the beginning of this.
Yeah. Can I, one thing, when I see this, it's something that Jim has talked about many times before is, when you do a postmortem is like an exercise businesses do when something happens that kind of puts a kink in whatever, or at the end of an event or, something like that. And so my postmortem thinking, Jim has written an article about who screwed up.
Yeah.
And it's about, as a dealer, where are we letting things fall through the cracks that should be it's being accountable for what we could have done to make the situation better.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because you're right. All these kind of things, we really would serve ourselves well as a business when we can get in the habit of looking at every scenario like this through that lens of, before we just jump on the customer, we have to be in the habit of kind of, self-inspection, kind of do a self-assessment first of our own processes. And is there something we did to contribute, which is exactly what I believe a white hat dealer will do.
Yeah. And the thing is if you see that you've done everything, because if you've got your processes or your current process, if you've done everything you normally do, okay, there still is a problem. Is there anything you can do more of in the future?
Yeah. And I got a nice text message from Crystal Aguayo, which you probably saw the thread too. It's like, Crystal saw that this was our topic for today. And so she sent a text to us this morning saying, she's somebody with a ton of experience. She came out into the biggest buy here, pay here operations in the country and has a lot of direct experience there. And she kind of went to the same thing I was thinking about, which is education. Because as you know, Michelle, I'm always, when I have these kind of things and I'm talking to new dealers, I say, especially we want to think about how this is going to go, not just with this customer, but the next 50 customers, the next 500 customers. So it's, with this particular customer, you can see on the little post that I put in there that this thing just went out in the BHPH success group yesterday, and there were 72 comments in the first 24 hours or so. And it's still active this morning. People are still in there, and we didn't have time to go through all the different parts of the thread, but you can imagine what the reactions would have been. Some dealers will say, it's on them, if it's as is, whatever. And it's just an example. I think this is one example, but I think it's a good one to be able to walk through the white hat practices of this. Like if you're really, and so what is a white hat dealer? It's somebody who wants to be known as an asset in their community. They're playing a long game. And so how would a white hat dealer, especially a new dealer, set themselves up to limit these kind of situations and then ultimately have a solution to resolve them. So let me just say, everything we talk about this morning, it's all with the expectation of making the customer happy and having that customer with us for many years.
Yeah, it's a 10, 30-year approach. Yes.
And what?
A 10 or 30-year
Oh,
approach.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, we used to say a 10-year approach, and then we realized there's dealers like Tommy Brandis out there been doing this for 30 years, and they've got customers that have been with them for generations and decades. So, we just kind of expand it. But I think everything that we would suggest here is kind of in that context. It's like thinking about, so first, let's back up and look at what happened here. The car failed. The dealer themselves,
in a very short amount of time after leaving the lot.
Yeah. And so that can happen. And I remember, I always kind of take this back to my own experience, because my own direct experience as a dealer was sort of an exaggerated scenario here, because I was doing inexpensive cars. We were doing a kind of a special business model. It was based on our available cash and kind of limiting risk. And so we were doing really affordable cars, higher miles, and strictly as is. But as you know, you've heard me say many times, just because we were as is did not mean that we didn't offer the customer solutions and support after they bought the car. It's just that because it was as is, we went to great lengths to make sure the customer knew what their responsibilities were going to be and what our responsibilities would be.
So let me ask you, Jim, if this was a scenario that you would have had when you had your dealership, and you're doing your postmortem, it's like, this is a thing, or, and you're looking at it, what is the first thing that you would be like, where did I screw up?
Well, the very first thing is going to be in the recon and then the pre-sales evaluation. So you're going to run the car through the shop and you're going to do an assessment. Here's one of the challenges. We, as dealers, we're not probably going to be afforded the opportunity to drive the car for hours like this customer may have. I don't know how far the customer drove the car, or, if it's in a metropolitan area, which I know this particular dealer is, then, could take an hour to get home, So I think when you're creeping through traffic on a hot day in Texas and the AC's running, you're going to stress the car in a way that you don't really get the opportunity to do as a dealer. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying the dealer messed up here. I'm simply saying, this stuff can happen even if you go through all the steps. So, but the first thing, to answer your question, the first thing I'm looking at is, did we assess the car thoroughly after we completed recon? And to me, that means getting the car warm for exactly this reason. So it's about getting enough time in the car to stress it a little bit. That's get it warm, run the AC, and give it a chance to overheat if it's going to, because we know that you can put all the education in the world. You can run the customer through a video, which is part of what Crystal suggested. It's part of what we would be suggesting, is like, you can sit the customer down and have them watch a video and educate them on what their responsibilities are going to be. We just know that some customers just, they're just going to keep pushing it. And in the thread, you can hear other dealers chiming in and say, had a similar situation, with their scenario. So this is going to happen. Customers are not as experienced as we are with this sort of thing. Some of our customers are young and inexperienced, and some of them are negligent, whatever the case would be. So I think more the question is, how do we go about doing it? Let's back up to the buying side. Let's take this in bits. So if I back up to buying the car, first of all, we know we want to buy the cars that have the best chance to perform well. And I know that a lot of the dealers chimed in on this particular post because it was said what kind of car it was. And so we don't buy that car, or if we do, this is how, we handle the repairs, because those cars have known issues. Okay. So that's one thing. We would try to make better decisions. And by the way, we met some people recently who provide some really important analysis on what kind of models are performing best for you, which sources are performing best for you. Something dealers might know kind of anecdotally, but they typically don't have that depth of analysis.
Like they have the auction that they know that when they get a car, they can rely more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, it's like, but think about most of these repairs that dealers are faced don't happen in hours. They're over weeks, months, right? Sometimes the buyer's over here buying, and in a bigger operation, you got a buyer, you got a service department, you got a sales manager, underwriter.
The new dealers, so they don't have a buyer.
No, they don't have all that, but it's like the problems can be kind of amplified when there's a disconnect in communication.
True.
That we can't say, stop buying that car model. We don't know why that particular series of cars doesn't perform well. We just know that a number of our customers are having problems. So communication from front to back obviously would be a thing. So buying the right cars. And by the way, if you want to get in touch with the people that provide that analysis, it's a monthly service, and they sweep your data and they provide it, so you can reach out to us and we can put you in touch with them. They're just not a very visible company, but they have a really cool solution, and so it can be a really important way to to identify this kind of thing.
Yeah, and the cost on that is just like one bad engine or one repo or whatever difference.
What you pay a year would you'll lose more than that in a single bad buy.
Exactly.
So it's about making better buying decisions first. Right. We want to make the best possible buying decisions. Then obviously when we get it back, we want to do a really thorough assessment. So part of what that involves for me is, and typically what we would be recommending to a new dealer is do a thorough assessment of the car before you start into any kind of reconditioning.
Yeah.
Okay. So
because I've heard you say that you do that, and then sometimes it's like, this one has way too many problems, and it goes right back to the auction.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, and we don't have to go that deep today, but it's like sometimes I hear dealers get to a place where they just feel like they have to recondition the car. They buy a car and they just kind of keep going, and we got to finish it, and we're, another $300 and we'll have this car ready. And then they spend that $300 and now it's another $500, and, they find something else. And so I think you never have to recondition a car. So I guess my point here would be, if you have a thorough analysis of the car when it comes in, then you don't proceed with any repairs. You don't sink any money into it until you feel like you have a really comprehensive understanding of what the car is going to need, because you don't want to start something it can't finish, and you don't want to spend $300 on something and then find out it needs $1,000 on something else. So this is where the actual inventory side is part from a white hat way standpoint. Is like the white hat dealer is going to do the best they can to buy cars well. They're going to assess cars as thoroughly as possible. Then they're going to recondition them according to their policy. Policies can vary on this. And so a white hat policy would be, that we make sure the cars are in good condition for the benefit of the customer and for us. Obviously, there's financial benefit for us to make sure that the car and the contract performs well. And we know that, look, dealers who are brand new at this, maybe there's somebody out there who hadn't heard this yet, but if the customer's car is not running, they don't want to pay. And I just had a dealer talk to me about that just this week. And so I just kind of used the expression that I've talked about before. It's like, in that kind of scenario, we got to make sure we have a plan, like a strategy for how to deal with that. So now back to the assessment, and now we do the best assessment we can pre-recon, then we recondition the car as thoroughly as we can, or as reasonably. This is tricky, Michelle. We could spend the whole session, we could spend a week talking about reconditioning decisions, because how far you go is going to vary with each dealer, and we'll go broke.
And it can get super costly. I mean, where it's that, you talk to a dealer and they're like, I don't understand. We're, not making as much money as da 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 da. And then you dip into their shop and how much they're spending on reconditioning. And it's like, that's a big deal.
It's subjective, right? I mean, there's some dealers want to recondition stuff in a way that it's, they just go like all the way. Like they try to do every single thing. And if that's your model and that's the approach that you want to adopt, then that's what you do. But I would say that this is really about, I think it's more about how do we satisfy the customer, fulfill what it is that we need to do from a policy standpoint, because we have our own financial interest to think about here. Of course, we got to make customers happy. That's the biggest part of making our business sustainable. And we have to manage our cash.
Yes.
So this is why I'm saying, we ought to have a policy that says, I just recommend a guideline. When I'm working with a new dealer, I say, we set a number. And that's why it's important to do the pre-assessment. If my number is $1,500 max reconditioning and the estimate comes back at $2,200, then I can make the judgment not to proceed before I ever sink the first 100 in. So this is why we kind of recommend, go ahead.
So you continue, because I was like, so everything is working, we've gone through our process, and now the car is sitting on the lot.
Sure.
What happens now?
Well, obviously now the thing we have to talk about, especially thinking about new dealers, is I have to have, now it's like, what's my program? Like, am I as is, no warranty? And if so, how do I communicate that to the customer? Yes, they sign the document. Yes, they cover the ground that is legal. We had them sign the as is FTC buyer's guide. That part's clear enough. It's legally, we've covered ourselves. But now, from a standpoint of customer relations and community relations and our business reputation, how do we handle those things, when that comes up? So, for the most part, the approach would be the same for me, as is, no warranty, or you could do a short-term warranty, or you can have a customer, buy an optional service contract. There's all these different ways to provide support to the customer after delivery. So I think that's the first thing, is you have to set policies that say, this is the way we're going to support customers after delivery. And for me, I hear dealers, we covered some time ago the thing about goodwill repairs, right? And so just kind of paying for stuff on the customer's behalf is just kind of, quote, in those dealers' definition, it was their way of being a, quote, good guy, good gal. I think there's more, and people can seek out that podcast on goodwill repairs, because what I'm really trying to do is create consistency in the process here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know in what we coach, especially if it's an as is, that part of the buying process, not the closing process, but part of the buying process, is that the customer takes the car to an independent mechanic.
Right.
And just has someone look. So it's about, now you've had what we've done and what we say, and then what someone that you trust or whatever says as well. And with that, it's like there's a level of ownership that happens too, that transfer of ownership, when they've done that as well. And so now they're coming in more as an educated buyer about the car than they were before. And that's something that I don't come from automotive, but it's like, that's smart.
And it's something that, this came from the Rick Reeves education that Tommy Brandis and we come from that background. Many, learned that way back in the, late 90s, some before that. But I do think that is smart, because it doesn't keep the car from breaking down. And
they're more educated.
You can find the episode on mechanical evaluation that we did once before. But in our case, we just all but required it. Like you would have a hard time buying a car at my dealership without a signature on that piece of paper. Like, and if you didn't, it would be a rubber stamp and you sign the waiver instead. And that's
like a big deal. Okay. You're fully aware. Yeah.
So it's kind of, that's in the context of transferring responsibility. Now, even if I do that, I buy the car well, I assess it well, I recondition it well, I assess it again. I put it on the lot, and the customer takes delivery, and I have disclosed all the stuff, and they watched a video and they signed all this stuff, doesn't keep the car from breaking down. There's not anything I've done there that necessarily guarantees that the car is going to perform. So I think this is where, and I always say, that, and I think it's generally still true, that if there's a problem with the customer or the car, you're going to know in the first 3 months. In this case, they knew in the first 3 hours that there was a problem with the car. So again, we have to be prepared for that. It can happen that we deliver a car that's got problems. And if we miss something, and we want to make sure and have a solution for that without throwing all of our other policies out the window, right? So this is why I think having these policies written and decided in advance, because I got a message from somebody on Facebook this morning, a former dealer, who said, I just used to hand those off to my managers. That was going to be their responsibility. And, large enough operation, that would be true. But what ground rules are the managers operating on as they're representing your name and your brand as a dealer, to make sure that we're consistent there. So I think for me, I'm always just watchful about, this is the old thing about the customer's always right. Well, sure, the customer's always right. And there are both legal matters here. There's legal boundaries to think about. That's more about the goodwill repair. When we step out there and do goodwill repairs, we're kind of stepping into some tricky legal areas. So I'm obviously not an attorney, but I'm trying to protect dealers from stepping into dangerous legal waters. And then there's the customer relations part. So we expect to make the customer happy. And I just want to do so in a way that's consistent. So certainly in this case, we would do what we could when the customer ran into that problem. And then in the context of making those repairs, I would be having the conversation with the customer and reaching an understanding before we proceeded, because, as we say, the customer often wants to withhold payment. If the car's not running, they want to withhold payment. And that's probably something we should save for a different conversation. But I would just say that there's a whole element here that I would just say, how do we handle this situation? What do we do? Well, the first order of business is to get it back in, do an assessment, have a conversation with the customer. And then, for me, I would be, if it's going to be warranty, if I'm going to cover it in the context of something that we missed, then I'm going to have to button that up in a way the customer understands. We're doing this because of this situation. And if we're to finance or put you in a replacement vehicle, then this needs to be the understanding. So I would be updating the understanding. I might be adding some additional education to the understanding, maybe even a separate signature document. I'm simply saying, I'll do it once. I won't do it twice. So it's like we have to make sure. So again, everybody can write their own policies, but I'm simply saying, I used to say to my managers, Michelle, and this was only in times when I was especially frustrated or really trying to drive home a point. And that was that, look, if the customer's signature on a piece of paper doesn't mean anything at all, then I don't know that I want to be in this business. And so it's like, why would I want to be in a business where I have to accept responsibility for everything? If I can't get the customer to accept responsibility for those things that are theirs, then I don't think this business is very fun,
The part about, it's one thing to just say you have to take responsibility, but I was kind of thinking on the drive up here the other day, and I was thinking about White Hat Way in general. And I was like, what is White Hat Way about? And it was, this is the first time Jim's hearing this, but it's a synopsis of a lot of things we talk about. And it's about helping, or it's about improving the relationship and developing trust between business, dealer, and consumer. And, how do we do that? We do that through education, services, and tools. And so, when we look at it that way, it's like education is so important. It's so important that we because we know that our customers in general, looking at it in aggregate, are not educated about contracts and about responsibility for these kind of things, about budgeting, all of that. And so that there is an opportunity for us to develop a better relationship and more trust through educating them.
Right.
And then offering, like you said, it's the offering services, which is, the whatever it is. It can be like, we are going to do a budgeting class and you're welcome to come, or we'll help fix this car or whatever, and tools. So it's like giving your customer, this is like, I'm looking at is what tools are we creating for dealers and all of that out there, but giving, like, how are you making it easy for your customers to pay? Do you have the tools to do that? Do you have the right tools to really be able to support a customer? A tool can be a video. It's education, services, and tools, and you're using those things to be able to improve our relationships, and develop trust.
Yeah. And I think one way that you can supplement that is, to educate them on the day they're buying the car is one thing, as we've talked about. And we also did a podcast on this thing about doing videos and kind of dripping videos, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, and that's kind of what Crystal touched on as well. It's like, I like the idea, and I think this is about just ongoing education, because I really want to see the customer get educated. It's not that I'm having them do this, sign here, and now I'm done as a dealer, because the day they're buying the car, that's a fire hose situation. There's a lot of stuff coming at them, all the paperwork and all the warranty and this.
Only makes purchases like that.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's the nature of it. So I think having education at the day of delivery is important, but then the ability to drip education, which is part of what White Hat Way is moving toward, to be able to help dealers to retain engagement and education through education, and certainly education would be part of, how we engage, because I think our customers don't want to be engaged if every time they are contacted by us, they're being sold something or some reason to buy something.
Or they're getting their hand slapped.
Yeah. For collections matters, right. Yeah. Or your insurance, whatever. So I think what we can do is help to create that sort of drip education and engagement in a way that helps the dealer have a dialogue. It helps the dealer put that education in front of the customer about these kind of things. And this also helps transfer that responsibility to the customer and helps them, ultimately, they're going to be more successful themselves in their contracts. And I think we just want to always be able to get to a place where the customer can take responsibility for what's theirs. We would be asking the dealer, as a White Hat dealer, you're gonna always be ready and willing to accept responsibility for what is yours. You're not going to dodge that. You're going to step in there and meet that and I just think, for me, I want to see the customer do the same. Or I just would be happy to end the business relationship. If the customer's going to expect me to pay for everything every time, then that's a relationship I'd be prepared to end.
Well, like with that education services tools, a tool can be your reinsurance program too. Right. You've got the powertrain warranty, all of that, or you've got the service contract that you've educated, and it's like, it's only going to cost X amount or whatever, or you just have a very expanded warranty. That happens, and it's like, oh, we got you covered.
Yeah, for sure.
Bring it in, we'll get that taken care of. Things slip through the cracks. We're so sorry.
Yeah. We got to wrap up. I got to move. I got up my B8 Plus, and then I've got a fly in here that's taunting me that I've got to deal with.
I can't see it, but I see your crazy eyes as
you're watching. Hear it buzzing. I feel like it's like it's so loud. I'm kidding, but there is a fly buzzing in here. But anyway, we'll wrap up there, and I appreciate folks tuning in, and we will be away for a chunk of next week, but the morning show will be pre-recorded and available for in the regular times next week. And I think that's it for me, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. We really appreciate your support. Happy White Hat Wednesday.
Hope you wrap up your July well.
Yes, absolutely. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us. I didn't pull up this right here, and I'm bringing it up. And there we go. Have a great day, everybody.